Brian, thank you for jumping on a call with me today, mate. For a BitByte interview. It's awesome to have you here.
Pleasure, man. It's all seriously, the pleasure's all mine. Like, I know people say that all the
Dude.
time. I feel like it's like kind of a euphemism, but the fact that people like Bitcoiners especially are down to chop it up and talk and chat and like grant a forum, man. Like, I'm truly appreciative for that. So thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. No, I'm super excited. And we're here to obviously chat about your book, which has been out for a little bit, but blocked it. Bitcoin Evangelism. It's without any bias, like even though we're just interviewing, like I read it when I first got it maybe a month or two ago, read it in the weekend. It's great. I loved it. So yeah, really good content, and it's a great length as well. Like it's not a short or too long. Like it's something you can smash out in a weekend if you're like me and just have no social life and you just spend the whole weekend doing it. So it was a really good read and really easy to digest as well, which is really good.
I really appreciate that, man. It's very high praise.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Firstly, before we kind of dive into the book and stuff, for people that don't know you or don't follow you on Twitter, tell us a bit about yourself, your background, your history, how you got involved in Bitcoin in the first place.
So I've been in Bitcoin for a bit. Like, it's always tough. Like, when do you say you got into Bitcoin? Was it when you first started studying it? Was the first time you heard about it? I can say I wasn't in Bitcoin when I first heard about it, because when I first heard about it, I disregarded it, and like actively, like when I started studying it, it was to actively try and disprove my friends that were buying Bitcoin already wrong. Like, they were entrepreneurs and like financially wise people that I looked up to. And I was very frustrated by the fact that they were buying Bitcoin. And so I started studying it to just be able to show them the way. Like, this is what
Yeah,
basically the opposite of what my book Bitcoin Evangelism was like evangelizing them not to be dumb Bitcoiners is kind of the way that I viewed it. Because the first time that I ever saw Bitcoin, or heard it mentioned, like most people remember the first time I heard it, it was on the news channel, or it was one of my friends or whatever. For me, it was here in the States, we have Saturday college football is like a big deal on ESPN. And I never watched it, but this Saturday I happened to be watching it. And before the game, they have all the commentators lined up on the sideline. It's like, hey, Jackson's going to do this. He's going to pass for this many yards. And they're kind of breaking down the players and the games and the strategies. And then they have all the students, the college students, like in the background. And, it's usually frat guys and people that are painted and stuff. And there was one kid with a sign that said, "Hey, mom, send Bitcoin." And it had a QR code on it. And
right.
I just, okay, what that, don't know what that is. Like, don't really care. Thought it was like interesting enough. Like, why was there a QR code? Could you send him something? Was it a website he was trying to link you to? Whatever. So I kind of disregarded it, watched the game, moved on with my life. And then a few days later, I was thinking about it. I Googled it and I said, well, college game day Bitcoin, or hey, mom, send me Bitcoin. So I looked it up, and it took me to Bitcoin Talk. And so I read the Bitcoin Talk forums at the time, and the Bitcoin Talk forums were like absolutely on fire because Bitcoin was getting no press. This was 2012 or something like that.
Wow.
And Bitcoin would sometimes get press, like, but like very minimal. And the Bitcoiners were like, they were celebrating. They were saying, Bitcoin has made it. It's mainstream. We're on ESPN. It was so funny because it wasn't like being featured on ESPN. They weren't a sponsor for one of the teams. It was some dork in the background with the sign. But it turns out that kid at the time, I hope he hodled. They said the
Yeah.
report was, or at least he reported, that he got like $24,000 worth of Bitcoin sent, because Bitcoiners all over the world were super excited that this guy got Bitcoin on ESPN. And so I haven't followed up since. I don't know what's happened to him, but if he held that 24,000, I mean, I don't know what Bitcoin, I don't know if that was the peak price, but like even at the peak around that 2013 time would have been $1,000. So he would have
Yeah.
24 Bitcoin that he had sent to him. I mean, and if it was at $30, that's a pretty tremendous amount as well. So that was my first exposure to Bitcoin. And then, so by the time a year or two later, the next year, when my friends were buying Bitcoin and talking about it, I was just like, this is the thing that I saw on the sign. Like, this is stupid. And so that's when I started studying it. And then it's like anything that's true. Like, true things can stand up to criticism, because when you start to study them, and if you look at them objectively and rationally, you're forced to run into this rock, this
Mm.
thing, this truth bomb that's out there. And so that's what I found. When you study money. Like I never asked the question, what is money, before. It forces you to ask that question. You go down the gold bug rabbit hole and you start to study gold, and then like, okay, this is like this, digital gold, and the different things that are being talked about. And those were compelling. The thing that really set me off, that like made me a Bitcoiner though, was Andreas Antonopoulos on the Joe Rogan Experience. And it was one of the times that he was on. I don't know if by this time I might have been 2014. Yeah, the dates I don't remember. But he said it was the digital scarcity that got me. And I had learned about digital scarcity, because you learn about that. But when he said it, it clicked for me. It was like the orange pill moment, or the light bulb moment for me. He said that in the history of computer science, we've never had a way to make digital things capped or digital things scarce. You could always click, copy, paste endlessly. You write a word down, you can replicate it endlessly. Song files, the example he used was song files. When music went to MP3 and it was no longer physical, it was no longer records, CDs, and those types of things, it unleashed this industry of people that were just copying and pasting, or downloading and copying music. It changed the music industry, because when you had these things that used to be physical and now they were digital, you just had the genie was out of the bottle, and it fundamentally changed the music industry. And so like LimeWire, Napster, all those things came along, and the music industry, they used to make their money off of album sales and things like that. They used to make very little of their revenue from live events. Now it's the exact opposite. They make almost no money from streaming on Spotify or selling their songs on iTunes. That's very little of their revenue. It's all about live performances and merchandise and all that kind of stuff. It's the exact opposite. So and why that happened was because music went digital. It could not be capped. It could not be made scarce. And so it was an impossibility. This is what Andreas was saying. It was an impossibility for money to ever be digital until you could have the invention of digital scarcity. Like that's why Bitcoin's so revolutionary. Like 500 years in the future, 2009 will be looked at as this year that digital scarcity, this thing that fundamentally transforms our world, was invented. And so, yes, they're going to say, Bitcoin will just be an assumption. Bitcoin will just be the status quo at that point. Everybody will understand what Bitcoin is. But that's, I think, because so Bitcoin will like cease to be impressive to people because it just is. But they'll look back on the AD BC moment of money will be when money could be made, or digital things could be made scarce. And that clicked for me in this massive way that I was just like, oh my gosh, everything else is digital. What is not digital now except for money? Money's the last thing that has to be digital. And that's like the biggest thing to be digital, right? Like that's the biggest thing that could possibly go from analog to digital. So that was like my massive orange pill moment.
You're right. It is the natural progression of everything. Everything adapts and grows as society does, and everything around us. So it just makes so much sense for currencies globally that it's time, or it does transition to that digital stage. It just makes sense. And I think you're right. That's why Bitcoin makes so much sense. So from the moment where you were orange pilled during that time, how did you then go from being someone who was purchasing Bitcoin, interested in Bitcoin, and then made that decision that, hey, I want to write a book about Bitcoin as well? How did that transition to that?
I think that's a good question. And so that's actually a lot of like why I wrote the book, is because of this process. I think we're seeing it's different now. Like somebody that comes in 2020, 2021, 2022 into Bitcoin, it seems like we're getting an entire generation of people that are Bitcoin only, and they're just kind of like going to stay Bitcoin only. There's a lot of people that came in 2017. That's like the exact opposite. They came in the altcoin phase, the ICO phase and stuff like that. So they started altcoins and now are trending back to Bitcoin. Like you're seeing a lot of prevalent altcoiners come back to Bitcoin. For me and a lot of my friends, it was Bitcoin for several years. Then, and when XRP came out, when Ethereum came out, we didn't think that they were, we thought that we understood why we didn't like them. But apparently I didn't have enough conviction on it, because a few years later, I kind of got into the altcoins. I actually worked on an altcoin project for a while. And so we went from Bitcoin only to altcoins, and now kind of having gone through that for several years, we're back to this Bitcoin only phase. It was kind of like our rebellious teen years, and we were out there partying, seeing what's out there. I'm like, wow, okay, everything that I thought was out there, I think the partying and the you know, all the crazy stuff you thought that was going to bring fulfillment, but it actually doesn't. And it's truly what happened. It's like we were out there chasing this fiat dream. It really, what my belief is that altcoins are just a digital representation or a digital extension of the fiat mindset. I mean, if you look at a lot of, and every once in a while I'll check in on like altcoin channels and stuff just to see what the news is. I like to keep abreast of what is going on in the industry. And it, like some of the biggest channels, you hear them talking about things like, yeah, next time Bitcoin runs up, even if they're talking about Bitcoin, next time Bitcoin runs up, I'm cashing out here and then I'm going to buy in back here. And that's just thinking like the fiat mindset, because you're talking about, how do I use Bitcoin to get more dollars, or how do I use Ethereum to get more dollars? Where Bitcoiners, we don't really talk about that. We talk about stacking sats. Like we talk about how much can I have of this, because there's only so many of them. So I want to get my hands on as many of those little pieces as I can. It's a very different conversation. So in 2017, 2018, 2019, I was very involved in I was the chief marketing officer for a small project called Ethereum. And this is one of the things that a lot of Bitcoiners will say, is that altcoin projects are all scams or intentionally malicious, that sort of thing. That project wasn't. Ethereum wasn't an intentionally malicious project. Nobody got scammed, or the people that were working on that project, we all had really good motives. We were trying to use this technology of blockchain to decentralize things. We thought we could help decentralize education content and things like that. And this is going to bring it to the masses. Like, some people are just dreamers in the altcoin space, but unfortunately we were missing some of the things that make Bitcoin truly special. Decentralization, immutability are some of those. Being on the inside of this altcoin project, I saw it was a proof of stake chain, and it was too easily altered. And I remember that amongst the team, we would talk about, hey, well, like, isn't this a problem that there's only so many master nodes on this thing, and that we could change the consensus if we wanted to? And we would say things like, yes, it's that way now, but just like George Washington had all this power and then gave it over, to the Republic after the Revolutionary War in the United States, we're going to do that same thing. So we're going to have the power kind of concentrated, but over time we're going to decentralize it. So I think there are altcoin projects out there that are having those conversations, but when you understand that proof of stake, almost, I think 90-something% of our validator nodes, or our master nodes on Ethereum chain, they were all on Amazon Web Services. So yes, we had different people that were running or owning these master nodes, but at the end of the day, Amazon Web Services could turn us off just like that, and they could essentially hijack our chain or just turn our chain off. So it was seeing that was a really fundamentally important time of being on the inside of a project and seeing, and I was the marketing guy. So I would constantly get DMs of companies or other people that wanted to pump and dump our coin. Like, hey, you're on the inside. Can you give us 1 million tokens, and then we'll pump it with you guys, and then we'll all get together? I mean, I got those texts all the time. And again, I like to think of myself as a guy with high integrity, and the other people on my team had integrity. We didn't do any of those. We got those things all the time, and we could have made hundreds of thousands of dollars probably doing that, with it being a small project. Being a bigger project, you could probably make millions of dollars doing it. We said no to that because we actually were idealistically aligned on trying to solve a problem. Unfortunately, we had some missing links in there. But just for people to know, if you're the marketing guy for a blockchain project, those guys are getting these tweets or these DMs all the time about how to rip you off. I mean, it's really scary stuff when you see the inside of that. And then just to show how easy that is. Sorry, I'm kind of waxing poetic here for a long time, but I think this is really important for people to understand. Our coin or our token was sold on a bunch of different exchanges. And there was some really small exchanges, and I forget the name of the exchange. It was like an international exchange, but one night I was curious. I was like, how much liquidity is on this one exchange? There was only $100 or $200 of our coin. It was a coin, not a token. I keep saying token. It was $100 of our coin on the exchange. And like, what happens when I buy that up and then I sell the next one to myself? Like, can I do that? So I buy the $100 worth of coins. Now there's no buy orders, there's no sell orders. So the next order, who's going to do that? So I bought all those coins for 2 cents a piece. Then this is how ridiculous these sites are. I placed the next coin, just one coin, for sale for $1, but I could also buy it from my same account. There was nothing to see if the same person is wash trading. It's like totally illegal to do that. So in one sale, I 50x the price from 2 cents to $1. And so I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like on this exchange, there's not much liquidity. It's going to adjust the price on this exchange. But what happens when I go to CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap and other exchanges? What happens to the price? And so I went to CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap. And so while it didn't change the price on the other exchanges, it did update our market cap in the worldwide rankings. So from that one sale, I spent $1 on one coin. And on CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko, we went from coin number 1400 in the world to coin number 423 in the world in one sale for $1. Wow. And our market cap went up millions of dollars based on the sale of one coin for $1. So I sold it back to myself for 2 cents. I created the equilibrium in the market. I was just shocked. And that was the point where I said, I need to walk away. This is the altcoin thing is just, that's why I say altcoins are an extension of the fiat system. It didn't align with the things why I got into Bitcoin in the first place of everything that, the tenets of Bitcoin that make it the money of the future, that make it like this premium asset that isn't controlled by anybody and it's scarce and it's immutable. None of that stuff was present in the altcoin space, and I couldn't find it in other altcoins. It literally could only exist as far as I haven't studied all 20,000 coins, but as far as the ones that I've studied, it only exists in Bitcoin. And so having gone on that process, having gone on that journey, that's how the book is written. Some of the people that have only finished part of the book, I'm glad you sat through it and read it all in one lump sum, because I've had people that have gotten to the middle of the book where I talk about altcoins, and I'm very friendly to altcoins because I think that we need to welcome in that crowd. I was there. There's plenty of people that come from the altcoin space and come back. And I think that there's interesting technology that's being pioneered in the altcoin space that I think will eventually be built on top of Bitcoin. So I don't think we need to alienate everybody in that space. But I think that I'm soft on those things, and I explain what altcoins are because I want people to the people coming into Bitcoin, I want them to be able to read the book and go through the process I went through and come to the conclusion that I came to without having to either lose money or realize that they were part of a scam, or to go through any of the hardship that people go through to learn that lesson to come back to Bitcoin only. So hopefully somebody can just sit down, read this book, and kind of jump, have 10 years worth of Bitcoin experience under their belt in, a weekend, hopefully.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I love what you say about how the altcoin, I guess, season of Bitcoin was that rebellion stage. Because I remember I first got into Bitcoin in 2015, but I spent 2017 to 2020 in that altcoin trading and experimenting and all that. And sometimes, being a self-declared Bitcoin maxi, it's like I almost feel embarrassed sometimes telling people my story and being like, I spent 3-4 years, in this altcoin season, but it was actually a necessary time because it's what brought me back to realize and appreciate just how important Bitcoin really is to the world. So I definitely agree with you there. And I remember the chapter about the altcoins as well. I'm not sure if you ever got any backlash from anyone being like, oh, it's a Bitcoin book, but I think you're right because it's part of the history. It's part of the whole legacy of Bitcoin, and it's almost an injustice and wrong to disclude it or not talk about it because it doesn't, it was maybe a negative or just not part of the Bitcoin maxi ethos, but it's a necessary and relevant part of the history. So Bitcoin Evangelism, it's an Amazon bestseller, which is incredible. Do you have, before writing this book, did you have any experience in writing books? Have you written any before? What was the process sitting down, writing the book? Did it just come naturally, or did you get assistance, or just a lot of research online on how to write a book?
That's funny. No, that's a great question, man. I've done a lot of interviews and nobody's ever asked me that question. So well done. Awesome. I think you have a third career in podcasting. I mean, because I think you do so many things. But yeah, I mean, as far as, I don't know, I felt like I was always a pretty competent writer in school. I wrote the white paper for Ethereum. I mean, like there's things that I'd written Medium articles and things like that in the past, just for other people or for other, resources and stuff. So yeah, I felt like it was something I didn't mind doing. I felt like I write pretty fast. I'm pretty good about shotgunning my thoughts out onto a page. And then if I don't have, like, I write like a fifth grader though. It comes out, I don't put commas in the right place. I don't spell words correctly. And so if you were to read the original manuscripts, it's like the content is fine, but man, it's just, you're like, wow, I probably shouldn't pay attention to this because this guy, he probably didn't pass the fourth grade. So having a competent editor, and obviously I read through the book 7 times probably before in the editing process. Then you have a professional editor do it a couple times, and you have another editor take a look at it because they see things that the other editor didn't see. And my wife had her read it. And then you have a whole round of early readers, and you go through this process and stuff. And honestly, most of it, man, was just Googling, how do I do this next phase of the thing? You just do it.
Yeah.
I think my strength, and I think that this is true for a lot of entrepreneurs or people that are out there just kind of like grinding and doing those things, is I tend not to ask for permission. I tend to ask for forgiveness. And I think that's a decent way to live life. I'm sure there might be a time where I need to ask for forgiveness on something that it's like unforgivable or something. But at this point, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I think people sit back and you hear people all the time of, oh, that would be a great idea for a book, or that would be a great idea for a business. And then they just never execute on it. I think that most people were programmed in our minds to think that we need permission to do something. And I think that realizing you don't need permission to do anything, that you can go ahead and do it, especially if it's something fruitful, like building a business or giving somebody a job or writing a book or creating content or creating a shirt company with merch, and like all those things. Like, you don't have to ask for permission. If you got a good idea, then go for it. If you think you have a good idea and it's not a good idea, take a shot with it. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Because honestly, a lot of times just putting yourself out there opens doors for other things. Like, for example, I attended Pacific Bitcoin last year, end of last year, just as like Bitcoin book writer guy. And I went and I was kind of there just to meet and greet and, meet people in the Bitcoin space and that sort of thing. And I ended up meeting the founder, Mateo, from Orange Pill app. And then he like pitches me on Orange Pill app. And now I'm like a partner in Orange Pill app. And I had the marketing for them. And, it's one of those things where things tend to open the doors for other things. And you never know where the road leads. But I just tell people all the time. And you hear guys like Joe Rogan say this sort of thing. People make fun of him all the time for, when he has a guest on and he tells them, oh, you should start a podcast. Like, he tells everybody they should start a podcast. Well, the biggest podcaster in the world is telling you to start a podcast. Why? Because there's some wisdom in that at one point he probably didn't think he was qualified to do that, especially when he started. Like, podcasting wasn't that big, but he just thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep doing it. And then I'm going to see if I put it out for long enough, if it's going to grow into something. He would have never guessed that a comic who has done a few reality shows and a few like did some stand-up comedy, that he would have the biggest, like most viewed show, something that would replace and disrupt regular TV. He would be bigger than that. Like, that would have never come into the equation. So putting yourself out there, trying new things, being experimental, I think is an equation for success. And if it's not successful on this try, I think that maybe it might be giving you some experience for the next time that you have a wild idea that you want to execute on too.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. The best advice I ever got from an entrepreneur mentor was, if you are waiting to be ready to do something before actually taking the leap and doing it, you're never going to be ready. You need to get ready on the way. Start and then get ready while you're in that process, because that's when learning happens as well, which is so true. My favorite chapter in your book, there's a few, but one that personally stood out for me was the 10 tenets of Bitcoin. And one of those tenets is censorship resistance. Why is that important for Bitcoin to have this feature of censorship resistance?
Well, I mean, money is the most commonly used tool by tyrants. I mean, that's just what it is. Like, most people think that a tyrant is somebody that puts a gun in your face. Yeah, that there's a pretty high correlation to tyrants and, you know, tyranny and a gun in your face, but there's an even higher correlation to tyrants and controlling your money. I don't know of any tyrant that existed in history that didn't first control your money. Like, they don't get to the point where they can put a gun in your face unless they years before were controlling the money. That's just how it goes. And so if you don't want encroaching government, if you don't want people that tell you, and when we say government, I'm not just saying like, oh, government's bad. Like, anybody that thinks that they should be in a position to rule your life, like, you don't want those people to run the money supply. And so I think, I mean, the bare bones answer is just that, like, censorship resistance equals freedom for people. And this is one of the things that I point to when the price goes down and people are saying, oh my gosh, aren't you scared? Like, this, is Bitcoin, and this is the question I ask, is Bitcoin censorable now? Is Bitcoin, the immutability change? Like, is Bitcoin, like, did the code break? Did something technical happen? Because if one of those tenets from that chapter is not disrupted, then it's an excellent time to buy. Is the price up? It's an excellent time to buy. Is the price down? It's an excellent time to buy. It, like, when I say buy, just getting more of it, like, maybe saying buy is like a fiat term, like getting more of those sats. It's an excellent time for that, because the thing that matters to me isn't the price. And so I can just get more of it when the price is down, if those fundamentals, if those tenets are left undisrupted. And so I think for most people, a lot of people in my circle that aren't fully into Bitcoin yet, this censorship resistance thing is speaking to them the most. I went to a thing called the Freedom Rally here in Southern California, I don't know, 6 months ago. And I just set up a booth, and all we did was just talk about Bitcoin to people that are, like, politically, like, maybe more libertarian minded or freedom minded. There's a lot of progressives there that were still in that freedom kind of mindset. Lots of conservatives and stuff. So talking to those types of people about censorship resistance, that was like the only point I talked about the entire day, was censorship resistance. And so if we're going to dive into that market, that's something that we need to be very familiar with as Bitcoiners. When we're presenting our case, when we're evangelizing for Bitcoin, you have to know your audience. If you're talking to a gold bug, talk about scarcity. If you're talking to a freedom fighter, talk about censorship resistance.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the good thing about Bitcoin as well is its use case isn't just specifically for that censorship resistance. It, like you said, it's also appealing to those gold bugs and someone who wants a decentralized currency or something like that. Another issue that you highlight in your book is, which is kind of relevant as well, is the issues with fiat financial system that we currently have. In light of, I guess, the current economic and financial anxieties that are plaguing majority of the world at the moment, can you kind of tell us how relevant would you say Bitcoin is in this narrative?
Oh my gosh, it's never been more relevant. I mean, it's that's why people are excited about it. People are talking about it. And that's what's so different this time versus previous bull markets. It was always around. I think that the 4-year cycle is valid. I think that as scarcity increases or decrease, I don't know how you would say that, like when Bitcoin's more scarce as far as the incoming supply, I think that that's always going to get people's interest, right? And that's just there's going to be actual supply and demand factors that affect the price. And then when the price changes, then mainstream people are going to talk about Bitcoin. But the mainstream always came because of the price first adjusting. Now there was utility that caused people to be interested in Bitcoin, and then the price began to spike. So we're seeing a changing in the paradigm of how society views Bitcoin. It was now looked at for its tenets. It was now looked at for its scarcity and all those components, rather than the price first. And so that's why I think we just like entered the second inning of hyper Bitcoinization. Like, the first thing being the first 13 years and the crazy early adopters. Like, that's the first inning. Inning 2 is like the first crack, the first sunlight of mainstream people not talking about it in general, because it's not really that important when mainstream talks about Bitcoin as far as price. It is really important when news anchors talk about Bitcoin as a solution to the world's problems because of the qualities that it possesses.
it's super relevant at the moment. The book, uh, it's good. What I thought about it was it's really good because it's perfect for someone who is first entering Bitcoin and wants a great overview. But for someone like me who has kind of been in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency since 2015, I'll be honest, at the start, I was like, not that I find it boring, but I'm like, I'm going to know everything that he has to say. I'm like, was a bit hesitant at first, but literally after the first chapter, I was like, yeah, no, this has something to offer for me, which is something that's really good. And I think it's a really good skill to have, to be able to build a book that relates to Bitcoiners in any season of their life, which is really cool. When you were writing the book, what would you say was the most challenging aspect, or the most kind of complex topic to write about?
I mean, I really guess I think I was concerned about backlash from the Bitcoin community, like of talking about altcoins, like going, I mean, you mentioned that earlier, like going down that rabbit hole and not just like dunking on altcoins the entire time. Like if I was going to take a soft approach, then I'm like, that would really bum me out. Cause I do care about the Bitcoin space. Like I care about the plebs. I want to be a part of the community. I think it's a cool community of people. So I'm not afraid to be an outcast. If I have a conviction on something and then like people don't like that conviction, I mean, I'm willing to be outcast for that thing. But on this thing, it was kind of a more like, I don't know what you would call it, like a discernment on how you talk about this. So I'm like, am I making the right decision? This isn't a deep conviction. I think I need to talk about these things, but it's not like a deep-seated conviction that I'm going to die on this hill of. And so, yeah, I was worried that like Bitcoiners would read the book and would just be like, dude, he's just an altcoiner in disguise or wolf in sheep's clothing. It's like, no, I'm not really trying to pitch altcoin projects. I'm really trying to take people through this journey and ultimately lead them to where I think that I landed. And maybe, maybe that's a good approach. Maybe it's not. Brad Mills, we were talking on a Twitter Spaces. We were both on like the Cafe Bitcoin Twitter space, and I was talking about my book and stuff. And I shared this analogy, and this is kind of where I came up with the Bitcoin evangelism analogy. Now I'm a Christian, so we think like evangelism is like something that is kind of part of what you do, right? If heaven is real, if God is real, if there's like really this like meaning to life, then it's probably one of the most important things we can talk about. And so, yeah, like that's why Christians are supposed to evangelize, because this thing is so important. We should talk about it. I think that money, I think that stuff, the meaning of life stuff is the most important part. I think money is like number 2 or 3. Like it's one of the most important things, like on the pecking order of life. It's a very important thing because it affects so many other things. When we say we're talking about money, we're not talking about in like get rich quick or like self-serving or whatever. Like those are components that can come with it. But money, better money for society is something I think that Bitcoiners are passionate about. Like we do see ourselves getting enriched on the way to that, but it's because we see like the reason why we believe it's an inevitability is because we believe society will tend to arc towards the thing that is the most good for society if people just understand it. And so my point was, if Christians have had such a successful movement for the last 2,000 years and going thousands of years beyond that, before that with the Judaism, how has it like been this thing that started out with this 12 disciples and 12 apostles and has grown to this worldwide movement? What did they do? Well, they took a very guided approach. And you read the Bible and it talks about there's 2 types of people you evangelize to. There's the pagan, or there's like the person that believes in other deities, right? They believe in a higher power, but they believe in a different one than yours. And so you have to have an approach for them. And then there's the non-believer. There's the atheist, the person that doesn't believe in anything. And that's exactly what we have in the crypto Bitcoin space. We have no coiners, people that are skeptics, people that do not want Bitcoin. They don't understand it. They don't care about it. Maybe they haven't thought about it. Maybe they have like a subjective reason for not wanting it. And then we have the, sounds super harsh now, the altcoin pagans, right? The people that are, sacrificing to these foreign deities and all these kind of things. So anyways,
false gods.
The false gods, right? But like as far as you want to take that analogy, but then within evangelism, we have 2 types of evangelism. We have the hellfire and brimstone guy that's you're going to hell. If you don't accept Jesus, then you're going to hell, right? There's there's people that think, and that actually was fairly successful throughout history of bringing people in. Maybe those were true converts, maybe they weren't. But then there's the other approach. There was the Jesus ate with sinners approach, that Jesus was actually even called out because he, like, you're a rabbi and you're going and eating with these prostitutes and gamblers and all these, tax collectors, all these terrible people. Jesus is like, I don't mind being amongst them, even if other people think that I'm bad for doing that. I think that winning these people over to my cause is more important than what the truly religious say. And so if the toxic maximalists want to say like, oh, well, you shouldn't be over there talking to altcoiners or joining an altcoin Twitter space or trying to talk to them, I'm like, well, you know what? I actually think this is like a very good approach to it. But in that Twitter space, Brad Mills goes, yeah, it turns out I'm a hellfire and brimstone guy. I'm just going to tell people that they're idiots. I said, hey, Godspeed, because I know Brad's like converted a bunch of people. And so there's more Bitcoiners because of his approach. But I think there's more Bitcoiners because of the people that have taken the approach that I align with as well. I guess there's a third approach. There's the crusade approach, which is like, come over to my side or I'm going to cut your head off. So I don't know of any Bitcoiners that are that way. That's probably good that we don't have any of that. So yeah, there's the hellfire and brimstone and the Jesus ate with sinners. So that's the approach the book takes. It's the Jesus ate with sinners. If you're considering altcoins, well, here, maybe consider this, ask these questions. And if at the end of these questions, if you still think that you want to invest in an altcoin, go ahead. But I think that if you ask these questions, you probably won't. And it's probably going to like reinforce your conviction for Bitcoin. And you're going to walk away much happier, much wealthier, and much more ready to share that information with the next group of people.
It's seriously the perfect analogy. I think the people who go with that evangelism approach of socializing with altcoiners or whatever, I guess the benefit of that is even if you don't get a result or a conversion, you still plant a seed so that in 3-4 years time, when the altcoins are there investing in or whatever else goes wrong, you've already planted that seed for them to water and grow. Whereas I guess the toxic Bitcoin maxi approach, it doesn't plant that seed. So no matter what, they're never gonna come back and remember that experience. This might be tough on the spot, but do you have any favorite chapters or quotes from your book?
I think my favorite quote, there's two. So I put the Henry Ford one on the back that basically says if people understood the monetary system or monetary and banking system, that they would be essentially riding in the streets tomorrow morning. I think that it's interesting, his perspective, because he was a wealthy man at the time, like during the creation of the Federal Reserve and that period of time where the central banks, do we do it? Do we not? And so I think that he landed on the side of like, wow, I can't believe that people took this on. And if they figured out how they got bamboozled, they would be out in the streets, but they're not. Like they're happy and peaceful because they're essentially ignorant to what's happening. To me, that's like a very provocative quote. And it's kind of like what we're seeing in France right now. We're seeing this. I mean, that had to do with like, retirement age, but that's part of the fiat system, is that they can just change the whim of a person or a group can change your life. That's crazy. The central bank, when Fed Chair Powell comes out, and it's not even like an official meeting. He might just be doing a press conference. It's not even one of the ones where they say the interest rate's going up or down. But if he comes out on a Tuesday afternoon and says, I had a hamburger for lunch and now my stomach's upset, I'm not feeling good, the market goes down by $1 billion or $1 trillion. Like that's ridiculous that one person's mood. He looked a little down today. He looked a little like that's gonna be bearish, right? He looks sour today. Like that adjusts the market. That is proof right there that we do not live in a free market. When an entity or a group of people or just one person can say something and it moves the market, it means people are looking to that central authority. There might be some freedom to move within it to some degree, but everybody's looking to that central authority to tell us what's good and what's bad. That's a broken fiat system. And I think that's what Henry Ford was talking about. The other, which I think piggybacks on that, I think that's a good 1-2 punch, is the Buckminster Fuller quote that I use, I believe, at the beginning of the book. And he says that if you want to disrupt the existing system, don't fight against it. Instead, just go over there, build a better system, and then people will go to it. Like we think that we need to burn the system down. Like in the United States, a lot of the progressives and the left, I'd say, more than progressives. The left in our country, and I don't know if this is true for around the world, but they talk often about burning our systems down, destroying our systems, destroying it and rebuilding it, you know. And that's the build back better thing that was all around the world a few years ago. And I think that as Bitcoiners, we see something different. We say, keep running your fiat system, do whatever you want. We're just going to build this other system, parallel circular economy. Anybody that wants in or out, you're free to go or come at any time. And that's essentially what we're doing. So those two quotes together, to me, it's like, man, these guys like really saw the writing on the wall. Like Bitcoin didn't exist at the time, but I think that Henry Ford, R. Buckminster Fuller would be absolute Bitcoiners today, because just based off the words that they said back then.
As I said before, the book, Amazon bestseller. When I first jumped on Twitter in October, I couldn't stop seeing about it. So I'm pretty sure you were one of the first people I followed when I jumped on Twitter. Because I was like, why is this everywhere? So it was a really good first kind of exposure when I jumped on Twitter. What are some of the most notable achievements since you've launched Bitcoin Evangelism?
I just, like I said earlier, I think just like the doors that it's unlocked, the people that it's allowed me to talk
Yeah.
to. I think that when we get into Bitcoin, there's this movement happening. And so there's the people that the outside world might not see as celebrities like we do. Like if Bitcoiners are like, wow, I really think that guy's cool. And so, yeah, when you go to these in-person like Bitcoin conferences, I'm going to Miami next month. And it's just like, to me, I'm like surrounded by rock stars. And there's people that to me, it's so much more important than like, yeah, if somebody makes good music, I guess that's valuable, but I'm not a music guy. So to me, like I'm in awe when somebody like, man, these people provide good content, education, and they're working towards a better world. Like, and you know what I like about this is that I know that he has his own best interest in mind because he's trying to enrich himself by selling more books and making a bigger podcast. But I don't care, because in his pursuit of that, he's doing something that I absolutely 100% agree with. And by him, that guy trying to make his podcast bigger and him being more entertaining and all that kind of stuff, for him to write more books, it's like, he's doing it and the world's going to be better because he did that. I just think that's so cool. And so, yeah, I mean, like been able to rub elbows with like just all the kind of Bitcoin people, which are the people that I think are cool. Like I would much sooner, I don't ask for autographs from these people because I try to be cool. But like I would much sooner ask for an autograph from like a Natalie Brunell or a BTC Sessions or one of these people, rather than like if I saw, I don't know, Bruno Mars, I don't know who's famous, like Kim Kardashian, I wouldn't ask for autographs from those people. And so the fact that like you can go and do these things and be around these people and like ask them questions. And like I got to interview Lynn Alden the other day. I got to interview Robert Breedlove and Jeff Booth and just like talk to these people. I got to be on BTC Sessions show. BTC Sessions, he has a massive podcast and he asked me to go on it. Like that's freaking awesome. Like how cool is that I'm like this nobody pleb that wrote a book and you're asking me to come on your show and talk about it. Like that was cool. This is cool. I'm talking to a dude in Australia that runs like a sick merch company for Bitcoin stuff. Like to me, this stuff is so cool. So yes. And then, like I said, opening the door for Orange Pill app, like I get to be a part of something that I think is, my conviction is very high with Orange Pill app. Like when Matteo was pitching me on what the vision is for Orange Pill app, like, yes, I think there's magic in Bitcoiners meeting in real life, because I think it adds a little extra dimension to it. And it's part of it, like integrates Bitcoin into your real life for the average pleb a little bit more. Like you and I work in Bitcoin. So it's like, this is kind of part of our real life anyways. But for most plebs, and for me before this point, it wasn't part of my daily life. It was like something I'd read some articles and I'd read some books on it. And then like the rest of my life would occur. Now, Orange Pill app's allowing people to make this economy of the social layer of Bitcoin get plugged into your life a little bit. And now the next phase, now that we're building in peer-to-peer connections and people are meeting in real life, and we just launched the events page. So we're actually the single biggest repository for Bitcoin events in the world. So we had like 780 events added already. We just launched it 2 weeks ago. We already have 780 Bitcoin events on the Orange Pill app that you can go to. There's like real life Bitcoin meetups. It can be a Bitcoin pizza day party with like 3 people at it. It could be Bitcoin Miami. Like the fact that BTC Media, like the parent company of Bitcoin Magazine, the CEO, like emailed me the other day and he was like, hey, just want to let you know we put our event on Orange Pill app page and we just love your app. That's freaking awesome, dude. Like that's so cool
Yeah.
that they're seeing value in Orange Pill app. And like we were talking about earlier, like Bitcoin allows you to have these experiences that you wouldn't have otherwise had. And Orange Pill app's like kind of taking that to the next level. So on the app, one of our advisors, actually, he's a NBA player. His name's Matthew Deladova, and he plays for the Sacramento Kings. And before every game, he goes on and he finds people in the app and says, hey, do you want to come to an NBA game tonight? I'll give you courtside seats. After the game, you can come on the court, take pictures, shoot some shots and stuff. And like these people, every home game, he's inviting these people because he can find these people. They like live within his vicinity. And so that's part of the magic of that. And he just invites them to a game. Like these people are getting these like once in a lifetime experiences. Like when have you ever been like, imagine you're just like on the app and then like an NBA player DMs you and says, hey, do you want to come to a game? Where does that, that doesn't happen on Twitter. That doesn't happen on Instagram. Like it's only because that famous guy or that famous athlete, he knows that you're a Bitcoiner. So you're kind of cool in his eyes too, because you've gone through this vetting process. The Orange Pill app, there's a paywall. You pay to go on the app. It's not very much. It's $3 a month. You can pay for a lifetime membership. Like it's not that expensive to join the app, but it's enough that having a paywall keeps out spammers, scammers, bots, all that kind of stuff. So you understand you're interacting with real Bitcoiners. And so, yeah, if you DM Natalie Brunell on the app, she's going to get back to you. If you DM Saifedean, he gets back to you, because what we've done for him and for her is the same thing. We've vetted, hey, this is all Bitcoiners. So you're not getting some like random bot on Twitter. These people, their DMs are filled on Twitter. They don't respond to them on Twitter because they can't. They don't want to waste their time because most of it's not even real people. But on Orange Pill app, it's a organic thing. So seeing that is like really cool. And our next phase after events is our orange pages. And the orange pages is where we're partnering with BTC Maps, and you can find local merchants that accept Bitcoin. And what's so cool about that, we're going to do this giant marketing campaign once we have that, where we can go to these local merchants and we can say like, okay, hey, you sell like you're a hair salon. So guess what? I know you probably aren't into Bitcoin, but check this out. There's this app, Orange Pill app. If you tell us that you'll start accepting Bitcoin, there's 50 people in your neighborhood. Every one of those Bitcoiners are going to be over here this afternoon to buy something from you. They might not need a haircut right now, but maybe their wife does. Maybe they want to, maybe Mother's Day's right around the corner and they're going to get her a gift card. They're going to come in, and as soon as they can, they're going to spend Bitcoin with you. How cool is that we're going to be able to orange pill merchants just by getting them to use and accept Bitcoin? Like they're not going to have to go read Bitcoin Evangelism. Hopefully they will. I would love for them to fully understand it so that their conviction is really high. But just like the early email users didn't have really high conviction on email, they just thought like, oh, you type it out, you click send and it works. Like now all of a sudden I'm an email user. I think for most merchants, Orange Pill app is actually going to be the way that there's hyper Bitcoinization happens, the circular economy happens, because we actually have a tool that says, look we have demand. Bitcoiners are these crazy nuts that want to support the network and they want to support the circular economy so bad that they will come and spend money with you today, probably, if you just join this app. And so we're going to be able to use like good old fashioned peer pressure for these businesses and just say like, hey, how bad is it to have another 50 customers? And it's not just like the sales guy saying it. It's like these people will actually come in and patronize your business if you do that. So when I think about that, like Jack Mallers with Strike is orange pilling Walmart, and that like the world's biggest retailers are going to be on the Bitcoin standard at some point, because in the next year, maybe two, like probably less, like I think it's going to be 2023. I think we're probably right around the corner from Jack Mallers releasing a major announcement. I don't have any inside information, by the way. This is just my assumption. They were going to do it last
trending.
year. Yeah, right. Just tell everybody.
But I think that by the end of 2023, Walmart, the world's biggest retailer, is going to have a sign in the store that says Bitcoin accepted here, which game theory is then going to play out, and Target's going to do the same thing. And then your grocery store is going to do the same thing, and it's going to validate it to everybody. So that's on the big scale. That's on the macro scale. That's all the big stores. But the other end of that spectrum is the mom and pop shops. And so what Jack Mallers and Strike is doing and the Bitcoin Lightning Network is doing at the top level, I actually think
at Orange Pill app, like we get to be a part of the other end of that equation.
Yeah.
And literally, boom, we just orange pill everything and meet in the middle. And it's going to be freaking amazing. So to be part of that, I couldn't be more motivated. I couldn't have higher conviction. I have ultimate conviction on Bitcoin, and I have ultimate conviction on this social layer aspect of Bitcoin. Like, and I don't think that, we were talking about the censorship resistance earlier. I actually think that's a really important component of Bitcoin, but I actually don't think censorship resistance, and hopefully this isn't lost the way I say it. I actually think someday the censorship resistance isn't going to matter so much to people anymore. And it's not because it's not going to still exist. I think it's just that the money will be such a hard target that nobody will think of challenging Bitcoin, that people will just assume yeah, money is censorship resistant. Like it'll just become the status quo. It's the norm. And so when something's a hard target, you don't mess with it. Like when a cowboy has a gun on his hip, you don't go pick a fight with him because he's just too hard of a target. And so Bitcoin will be that hard target. And so it'll get to the point where Bitcoiners will want to share who they are. They will want real life connections, because the circular economy, it's like, you can't come after Bitcoin. I think that's why Bitcoiners are worried that like they keep their identities private and stuff. And I understand that because we're like a privacy focused group. But I also think that at some point, if hyper Bitcoinization happens, it's like, you're going to proudly be like, yeah, can I spend Bitcoin here? You're going to be saying that in public, and you're not going to think twice about it because you're not going to be worried that your government's coming after it, because frankly, they won't be able to. It's just the government's going to say, wow, this thing's too strong. We can't mess with it. Let's build around it. How do we do that? So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I love the Orange Pill app. We did obviously, did a limited edition tea collaboration with them, which was so much fun. And I got to chat with Matteo a bunch. And when I messaged him on Orange Pill app, at the start, I was always so nervous because I'm like, to him, he's like a celebrity to me. So like whenever I would message him at the start, I'd be so nervous. And he would reply in 10 minutes, 5 minutes. He'd just be straight replying to me. And I'd be like, oh, wow, this is incredible. But ever since jumping on myself, it's been really good because customers of Mr. Satoshi message me on Orange Pill app, and I'm chatting to them and they're like, love your store, love your apparel. But they'll be like, what about this suggestion? Or you should do this, or what do you think about this? And it's like, it's the coolest thing to be able to interact with customers and other Bitcoiners as well. And I don't know what it is, but it definitely feels a lot more intimate than a Twitter DM or whatever it is. Being on a platform that any person you interact with is a Bitcoiner and has paid to access this facility to communicate is a really like cool and special thing. So yeah, I'm the biggest fan. That's like a whole podcast in itself, talking about Orange Pill app. And the events is really cool as well. I saw one, obviously I'm in Australia, so I saw one that was about 6 hours away in Victoria, just like a pizza meetup. And for a good hour, I was like contemplating, do I do that? That'd be so funny and so much fun if I like documented driving for 6 hours in the outback to go to this place, but didn't pull the trigger on that, unfortunately.
Next time, maybe 3 hours away.
Yeah, it's cool. And you are heavily involved in the online Bitcoin community as well. Like obviously Twitter, you're one of the first people I followed because you were actively posting and doing some really positive things there. And I obviously everyone would know as well, you personally give away quite a bit of sats as well on Twitter. What is the motivation behind that? Like, why do you think that is such an important thing to be giving away sats, but even just for the smallest things as well? Like and share this and you'll get 10,000 sats. Like, why is that important?
Yeah. Well, like for a few reasons. I think that one of the easiest ways, like if you don't feel like your friend wants to read a book like Bitcoin Evangelism or the Bitcoin Standard, which most people just aren't going to, the easiest way to orange pill them, like over a cup of coffee, is to have them download a Lightning wallet and then send them Satoshis. Like it's so easy because they're like, wow, this is crazy. Like, and you kind of, I found that pairing it with like the right wording just really kind of unlocks their mind, because they might think of it as like a Venmo or a Cash App or something like that. Oh, I can do that with, PayPal. That's nothing special. But when you say, I just sent money to you via mathematics. We just use cryptography and mathematics to send value with nobody in the middle. Me and you, we just did this, the two of us. Like sometimes that makes it a little bit more profound for people. And so, yeah, I think it's just one of the best ways to spread the thing. And I find that a lot of the people that go and download a Bitcoin or a Lightning wallet are either current altcoiners or ex altcoiners that Lightning answers 95% of their questions of why they were in the altcoins in the first place. So yeah, maybe those people won't read Bitcoin Evangelism and go through the arc that you and I have gone through, but they didn't get into Bitcoin because it was too slow and it was boomer technology. But then we're showing them that it's instant and essentially free, and I can send it to you for very small amounts. I can send you large amounts. It really takes away almost all of the claims of like, using Bitcoin as money, or, the claims as far as why you wouldn't use Bitcoin as money and why they need to use XRP or they need to use Cardano or one of those ones. And so it answers that type of thing as well. But I think maybe the most interesting thing and why I get such a kick out of doing it, and granted, I haven't been doing it as much. I still do it like a few times a week. I used to do it every single day. We're remodeling my stores. I have a brick and mortar stores. We have a small chain of light therapy studios. It's what my wife and I have been doing since 2008. So we're like remodeling the stores right now. So the last 2 months, I just haven't had the time to pay all these invoices. Like I'll go through, sometimes I'll pay 100 invoices in a day. Like my goal is to say that I've paid more Lightning invoices than anybody else in history. I think Joe Hall still got me beat because he's just constantly doing it. But I think I'm going to catch up to him at some point. And so anyways, when I'm about a couple weeks till we're done with that, and then I can focus just on Orange Pill app, running the CEO role of that other, my other enterprise, and then the book stuff. Once I get back to that, I think we're gonna really ramp up the SAT giveaways. But like I was saying, is one of the things we talk about in the book is altcoins want to, people like say not the non-scammer altcoiners, but the altcoiners that have good motives. Like I said, our project, we wanted to decentralize education. We wanted to make it so anybody could become a teacher and post content. Anybody could be a student, yada, yada, yada. We decentralize, whatever. Altcoins all want to decentralize something else. One of the really interesting ideas is decentralizing, taking out the middleman in online marketing, right? So if I want to boost my Twitter, you can do that. Like anybody can go and pay to promote their tweets. I tried that when I first published my book. I'm like, I got to get the word out there. Nobody knows that I'm an author and all that kind of stuff. So let me pay $100 to boost this tweet. I would pay $100 to boost this tweet, and it would say it would go out to thousands of people. And I suppose it did. But when it's an ad, not that many people interact with it. It would get like 6 likes, no retweets, maybe a comment, maybe every once in a while I'd get a DM, and I would never get a sale. Like it wouldn't materialize in any sales because it wasn't organic. It wasn't like Bitcoin ethos specific. It's like I'm paying this middleman. And so I'm like realizing it's not efficient. Well, what if I just ask the plebs to do this? And what if, in the book, we talk about decentralizing marketing, decentralizing the taking the middleman out of this process, and me as the guy paying to market something, instead of Facebook getting it or Twitter getting it, why don't we just have the end user get it? And that's exactly what the Lightning Network does. It takes out Twitter. We get to use their platform. We get to provide content. So I'm actually giving Twitter something. We're not cutting them out entirely. We're giving them interactions on their platform, right? That's what Twitter wants to show their investors. So we're actually providing, the Bitcoin plebs provide some value for Twitter. We're providing interactions, users, audiences, and all that kind of stuff. But as far as the exchange of money, it's just between me and my fellow plebs, and nobody in between. And so they're doing me a solid because they're promoting my book or my tweet or Orange Pill app, or they're promoting whatever. And guess what? Instead of me paying some outside company, I'm going to pay you directly. To me, that's how Bitcoin works. Like that's the Bitcoin ethos. If you go listen to any Knut Svanholm interview, he talks all about how Bitcoiners are going to interact when we're on a Bitcoin standard. And it's that kind of stuff that people are just going to do things for each other for free. And guess what? The plebs are so freaking generous that when I tweet something and I'm not even doing a giveaway, they retweet it and share it and like it anyways. Like they do that. And so it's like I owe them to do this. It's like, hey, you guys have done this for me in the past. Like, let me make sure we're like, spreading the love, because I'm if I'm promoting a book, if I'm selling something, I should be willing to pay a little something for it as well. And so disintermediating marketing, I think, is one of the most interesting things that not a lot of people are talking about when it comes to Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, I agree. I take the same method as well. And I paid for Mr. Satoshi. I paid the start when we were launching and getting the word out, thousands of dollars on Twitter ads, and the conversion, like you said, I was getting like a few 100,000 views on these things, and the conversion was just so small. And then when I switched the method to giveaways and free sats, and like we have our monthly giveaways as well, like the conversion of that is tenfold what it is for Twitter ads, and the cost of it as well is so much less. So it definitely shows the power of Bitcoiners and plebs and the whole ecosystem that we're in.
Well, and you're stoking the market too, right? Like you're creating more traffic on the Lightning Network. Like we don't want to, over congest it, but it can scale pretty well. So that's not the problem. You're creating more utility. And guess what? Is there a scammer on the other end of that? Or maybe not a scammer, a bot on the other end of that, or maybe not a bot, like somebody that's just, kind of doing it because they want money? That's great. Again, the thing that they're doing that's in their own self-interest is providing value for me. It's providing value for the Bitcoin network. And it's like, that's all we can ever count on. Those are the only systems that are ever going to work, is when you've aligned everybody's incentives. And when we say aligned everybody's incentives, it's not so that we're counting on Brian to do nice things for Bailey. It's that Brian's going to do nice things for Bailey because it's in Brian's own best interest to do that. That's one of the other quotes from the book that I like. I think, is it Adam Smith that says it? He goes, it's not, the family doesn't get their meal because of the good graces of the butcher. They get it because the butcher wants to feed his own family. Like that's why your family gets to eat the meat, is because you gave him something that he can feed his family with, which is money, so he can go buy food for his family, that sort of thing. So it's like, that's the system that works. And that's what we're doing. That's what Mr. Satoshi's doing. You're finding your demographic. So it's concentrating that. It's making your business more profitable, more well-known amongst the people you want it to be known amongst. And then you're creating the circular economy that then goes back and then fuels your business. That's exactly what you want to do. If people understand economics, that is the perfect system. And that's what's at stake here. It's like, we can go back to the old one, which is like the exact opposite of that, or we can go on this aligned incentive system where everybody makes out better because of it.
Yeah, it's a mutually beneficial exchange, which is really cool. Kind of on the topic of that, when you first launched Bitcoin Evangelism, I know that you put a couple of secret words in the book that linked someone to a Bitcoin wallet with $1,000 in it. Who got it? Did anyone get it? What's the story behind that?
So I was kind of worried that the person that got it wasn't going to tell me. And then I was just going to see it gone. I'm like, that kind of sucks. I don't know. So it was a woman that I met. I went out in August. I flew out to the Beef Initiative in Georgia. So I live on the West Coast. Georgia is kind of like on the East Coast of the United States. And it was just farmers and, Bitcoiners and farmers, ranchers coming together. And it was this pretty cool event. But anyways, it was just a woman. I think she's a rancher from Alabama, I forget, but anyways, so I just met her and she bought the book there, and I thought all was gravy. She was asking questions about it, but it was like, okay, cool. She's gonna go look for the seed phrase. She emailed me, I think like a month later, maybe 2 months later, and she's like, I think I got it. And she was pretty close, but she didn't have some of the words in the right order. And so I said, I think you're getting close, but you gotta, I'm not going to tell you any hints. You just got to keep putting these in. And then if you get it right, it's going to unlock the wallet and that sort of thing. And sure enough, I thought I made it pretty dang complicated. So for anybody, I don't mind sharing, like, it was basically just like, as you read through the book, there'd be parts of words that were italicized. So the first word was rent of the 12-word seed phrase. The word, you would find it by reading on like page 7, there was the word different, and none of it was italicized except for RENT. And so that was the seed word. And you'd go through, and 8 of the 12 seed words were like that throughout the book. But the last 4, you had to find them a different way. And it was actually, nobody reads the citations. And that was kind of what I thought was funny. I put it in the citations of the book. And so, for example, if citation number 4 said, man went to town. Well, I would say man went to
space, and or that actually kind of sounds like it makes sense, but it wasn't the right article heading. And so I would juxtapose a word that wasn't supposed to be in that article heading. That's pretty complicated. Like, you would have to know what the article originally said and then know what word I changed out that's in the seed phrase. And then beyond that, the order of the words was how you found them in the book, but you would put so if it was the fourth citation of the book, you would plug that in, and that was actually word number 4. So the first 8 words were kind of in chronological order, but then you had to plug whatever number citation it was. I don't know how she figured that out. And I asked her later, I was like, that was a pretty complicated. So even if you got all 12 words, you still had to figure out the order. She goes, honestly, I just kept trying different combinations. Like, once I had it down to this, like, I was like, okay, this, so she said she had it like almost like the conspiracy theory charts in the background. She had like pins and things and like, dude, she was really into it. Awesome. And she was like, I mean, it was cool. It was a rancher that's into Bitcoin. Like, that's exactly who you want to win your Bitcoin prize. Yeah.
That is perfect. Brian, it has been amazing catching up with you, mate. Really, really cool chatting about Bitcoin evangelism and all the stuff you're doing in the Bitcoin community. So thank you for coming on today to chat. We will be giving a bit of a prize to all of some of our BitByte readers and watchers. So we will give away 5 copies of your book, Bitcoin Evangelism. So we're doing that on a Twitter giveaway. So anyone watching this, jump on the BitByte Twitter. So it's at bitbyte.news and have a look at how to enter. Obviously, it'll be super easy. And we'll give 5 people a copy of your book because I think it's super important.
Wow. Thank you, man. That's amazing.
Awesome. Before you go, any other comments? Where can viewers find you? Social media? Where can they buy your book?
Yeah. So Amazon, it's on Amazon. You can get the paperback, the hardcover, audible.com if you like the audiobooks. If somebody wants it and you have a family member that you don't have money, you need to orange pill them, email me, DM me, I'll send you the PDF. I don't care. Like, at the end of the day, this is meant to be a resource to orange pill people. Like, yeah, I don't like reading PDFs. Like, I don't like reading books in that format. I want the physical book. And so hopefully, like, they buy the physical book because I think the experience is a little bit better. But if you're just trying to get information into somebody's hands, I think this is a decent resource. I think that the Bitcoin Standard is a really important book, and Layered Money. These are really important books for people to read, but not everybody reads those books and like fully comprehends that. Like, I think that there can be some like some esoteric things that happen in some of the Bitcoin books. And so hopefully, like, I'm a caveman. I'm not very sophisticated. And so I think that Bitcoin's laid out for like a pretty unsophisticated person to understand. Yes, there's always going to be complicated things in there, but I think that it's like plain English enough for that person that just, like you're like, man, it's my aunt. I don't want to get over, I don't want to talk about like just super complicated layered, like layers of money, not talking about layered money, but like these different degrees of money. Like, I just want to talk about the basics and why this matters. I think it's that fit for those type of people. And again, like I said, if you can't afford it, I'll give you a PDF. It's not going to be as good as the books that you guys are giving out. That's amazing. The physical books obviously better. But then, yeah, reach me on Orange Pill app. Like, I love chatting it up with plebs on Orange Pill app. Twitter DMs. Sometimes I get back really slowly to Twitter DMs because it just puts a lot of stuff in my spam. And so, like, if I don't answer for a week, I'm so sorry. If you want a quick answer, hit me up on Orange Pill app. I will get back to you much more quickly on there. So there's not a spam folder. Because there's no need for a spam folder on Orange Pill app. So it goes directly to me, and I'm going to get it 100% through there.
That's awesome. I'm definitely eager for the sequel to Bitcoin Evangelism. Make sure you let me know when that's coming up for pre-order. Okay, we'll do another interview.
I love it. Thank you, man.
Awesome. It was so good chatting to you, Brian.
My pleasure, brother.